Okay, this video is called Do Estrogenics Make You Stupid? So this is estrogenic chemicals, and there's tons of them. Okay, here's a guy by the name of Gilles Seralini. He's a great researcher, and he got himself in big trouble because he wrote a paper saying that glyphosate, the chemical sprayed on non-organic soy, causes increased risk of tumors, and then they tried to retract the paper, all sorts of stuff. I'm not going to go into the details on that, but the bottom line is big profitable food companies, they don't accept negative publications about their product, and they do a lot of bad stuff to the researchers who put out those publications. Okay, they really push to criticize his work. There's an entire Wikipedia article criticizing his paper that criticizes GP. All right, and then he wrote this other magnificent paper here where he went through all the endocrine disrupting chemicals. They're typically abbreviated EDC, endocrine disrupting chemical. And he noted that 177 in a row were also toxic to the brain, toxic to the central nervous system. So he said that he renamed them. He said they shouldn't just be called endocrine disrupting chemicals. They should also be called nervous disrupting chemicals, endocrine nervous disrupting system. So instead of EDCs, they should be called ENDCs. I would say you can call them EDNCs, whatever. But the bottom line is virtually every single one, 177 in a row, was also neurotoxic. Now, some of them exert their toxicity by being primarily thyrotoxic. And he says that's the case in about 20% of them. So this is the graphical abstract from his paper about endocrine disruptors also being nervous system disruptors and should be renamed as ENDCs. Here they are, 20% primarily thyroid disruption, which causes cretinism in a child. 80% nervous system disruption. Okay, so that's big news. And why does this all matter? Why should you care? Because you're exposed to tons of these things, and you want to minimize your exposure to this stuff. There's a lot of things sort of working together to make you stupid. All right, here's the other paper. Endocrine disruptors also function as nervous disruptors and can be renamed ENDCs. There's Seralini, and here he lists 177 in a row, and he goes through all the common ones, and he shows a bunch of references for each one about how they cause this problem. There's often multiple other references than what he shows here, but it's a long table. He goes through all 177. So what this means to me is, for example, when I don't even use a dishwasher, but back when I did used to live in a house and other family members use a dishwasher, I would always rinse it off. When I do my laundry, I do my laundry with no laundry detergent because it's got 3 estrogenics in it. It's got the estrogenic of the soap, it's got the estrogenic of the inner BPA bottle and its lining, and the phthalates used to condition the plastic bottle for the laundry detergent. And then the anti-wrinkle stuff that you would put in the dryer, I don't use that either. That's estrogenic. And my hope is that by avoiding all these estrogenics, I'll get a small increased boost in neurologic function. And a lot of people say, who cares? Those are all minimal effects. Well, one of the things that conditioned me to really care is I was a college wrestler, and I seen a lot of big matches in the semifinals and the finals be decided by 1 point, one way or the other. And so if you want to, win the game of life and health and brain function, you want every IQ point that you could keep. Okay, now here's a guy by the name of Dr. Anthony J. And he's a brilliant PhD researcher, especially in lipid biochemistry. And he wrote this masterpiece book called Estrogen Generation, how estrogenic chemicals are making you fat, sick, and infertile. They're also making you stupid. And it's a brilliant book. It's one of the top 20 all-time health books. Now, some people will criticize this guy because when it comes to nutrition, he's kind of young. And young guys tend to be caught up in the, you need more meat for muscle building. So he's not that good on nutrition. But when it comes to estrogenic chemistry, he's magnificent. And the other thing, too, just to let you know, here's this guy, Mayo Clinic, brilliant, absolutely brilliant, magnificent writer. What happens to him at the Mayo Clinic? Mayo Clinic fires the guy. He's also a Caucasian, he's also a Christian, and they hate people like that. Almost all the major well-known medical centers in the USA, there's an intense hatred of the heterosexual white male Christian. Usually these institutions have been taken over by persons related to the cow, the moon, and the east, goals of the, super rich, and they don't like independent, smart, clever thinking people, okay? And so the number one group they want to get rid of is the group that he's from, because they see them as an obstacle to bringing back slavery. I'll also tell you something here about minority geniuses. This guy by the name of Tyrone Hayes had a scholarship to Harvard, and he did some great research. He figured out that atrazine was turning the male frogs into female frogs. And once he published this research, these big companies got very pissed off at him, and they tried to take away his fundings. They did all kinds of things to damage his career. Okay, so here I'm going to show you his paper. So this is one of the papers by Tyrone Hayes. Here he is, first author. Atrazine induces complete feminization and chemical castration of male frogs. Okay, so here is the frogs that change the male frog into a female frog, and then here's a picture of two male frog brothers having X with each other, making the two-back beast, and this just shows what these chemicals can do. And just so you know, this stuff is going into subsidized food, okay? This is routinely sprayed on the corn. It's sprayed on lots of other crops. It's sprayed on lawns. It's one reason why I don't play golf. These chemicals are widespread. They're ubiquitous. And then they don't even do carbon filtration on a significant amount on most municipal water. So this stuff is in your tap water if you're drinking tap water, okay? He said atrazine is the most commonly detected pesticide in drinking water. Atrazine makes males become demasculinized, chemically castrated, and completely feminized as adults. So you can imagine children drinking tap water, male children. This is going to make them confused. It's going to have a strong estrogenic effect on them. Okay, so we've covered the very, very, very powerful estrogenic effect of this stuff. And when you buy non-organic food, like you go to a fast food place, a burger joint, you can bet the high fructose corn syrup in there has been sprayed with this stuff. And it's not just one thing. There's tons of feminizing chemicals. But it gets much worse than that. Atrazine is also an inhibitor of mitochondria. For example, it inhibits mitochondrial complex 3, okay? Well, when you inhibit mitochondria, you're also going to interfere with the central nervous system. It affects neuroendocrine and neuron development, all right? So that means it's going to have a negative effect on the brains of children in particular. Here's some papers showing some of the things that it does. It's destroying the mitochondria in the muscle tissue, so the person's going to have less energy. Normal mitochondria kind of looks like a peanut. So here is the mitochondrial tissue damaged, and it's replaced by fat. This is in the liver, so these mitochondria are being destroyed. This is in the skeletal muscle, soleus muscles like the calf muscle, and you can see the mitochondria are being destroyed in there. Not good. It's going to make you weak and have less energy. In order to achieve anything in life, you need energy, man. Energy, courage, and effort, and brains. I mean, it's not easy to achieve something. You know, the world's a competitive place. Okay, so here's another paper. This one's written by a bunch of Koreans. Chronic exposure to the herbicide atrazine causes mitochondrial dysfunction and insulin resistance. So it also increases your risk of diabetes. Well, doesn't that sound familiar? The typical person's fat, sick, stupid, and weak, and cognitively slow, okay? This is all the stuff. They're being pumped full of these chemicals that make them fat, weak, diabetic, and stupid, okay? And they eat high-fat diets, so they're hypertension. They got hypertension, and they're atherogenic. The atrazine chemical also is toxic to the brain. It damages the dopamine neurons, so it increases the risk of Parkinson's disease. Great. Parkinson's disease is more common than people think. No fun to have Parkinson's. Another paper showing atrazine associated with Parkinson's disease. Another paper here showing atrazine having a damaging effect on Parkinson's, on dopamine neurons. Okay, so anyways, that's all I got. So the point of this lecture is, yes, estrogenic chemicals are strongly associated with damage to nervous system tissue and are likely to lower, and they do lower IQ. So you want to avoid them as best you can.